Since the 1950s, many scholars of religion have used the idea of the sacred as a non-reductionist criterion for defining religion and for identifying phenomena as religious. Phenomena, by the way, are things, in particular, things we experience or observe. These scholars are building on the work of an important theorist of religion, Mircea Eliade, who wrote an influential book, The Sacred and the Profane, published in 1957. Eliade argued that the sacred is something irreducibly religious. That is, we can't explain or understand people's experience of the sacred by reducing that experience to anything else, like psychology or politics or the way societies work. In particular, Eliade argued that the sacred is not reducible to something irrational. Eliade emphasized this because we usually think we shouldn't make decisions based on irrational ideas and motivations, and if we think religion is fundamentally irrational, we will probably think we should stop paying attention to it and stop using it to guide our lives. Eliade thought that would be a mistake. So what do non-reductionist scholars mean by the sacred? First, let's note that the sacred is not the scared. But that's not enough of a definition. William Payton tells us that the sacred is something of extraordinary power and reality, at least from the perspective of someone who perceives it that way. Peter Berger, a sociologist of religion, calls it an experience of mysterious and awesome power, after other than humans yet related to them, believed to reside in certain objects of experience. The sociologist Emile Durkheim originally defined it as the sense of power and mystery associated with sacred things, that is, things that are set apart and forbidden. Generally speaking, the sacred is something or someone special, set apart, or held inviolable, untouchable, especially something people think of as awesome, mysterious, and powerful, whether that's in a good way or a bad way. Mount Fujiyama, which is sacred to the religion of Shinto, is a good example of something like that. In his book, The Sacred and the Profane, Eliade described different categories of sacred reality that could produce the experience of a hierophany, that is, an appearance or manifestation of something sacred. Almost anything can do that, but Eliade focused on the categories of space, time, action, story, and humanity. That is, people can feel or report feeling that mysterious and awesome power of the sacred in connection with special places, like, for example, sacred trees, in connection with special times, like, for example, Jewish Shabbat, Sabbath, in connection with special activities like religious rituals, for example, prayer, or special stories like the texts of the Christian Gospels. And finally, special categories of people like priests or priestesses or this native shaman. There's something kind of funny, however, about the idea of the sacred that's used by non-reductionists over time. That is, because it's been used by reductionists as well. The idea of the sacred builds on the idea of the holy, described in a book by Rudolf Otto, who was a Lutheran pastor, and as such, definitely a non-reductionist. But the sacred was turned into a defining characteristic of religion by Emile Durkheim, a sociologist, who was definitely a reductionist. For Durkheim, The sacred was a social fact, something that grew out of human society. Eliade's work, in a sense, aimed to reclaim the sacred as an idea that could be used by non-reductionists. So the sacred, as used by non-reductionist scholars, is an idea intended to keep us from reducing religion to something else, like the way society works. But its reductionist past may make us wonder from time to time whether the experience of the sacred really always comes from outside humans themselves.